Lovely to see so many in here already. Hello, everyone. Hi, crypto miners. Hi, everyone joining us today for this very special event we have here with zkSync era. And we have Anthony here from zkSync. Hi, Anthony.
Hey, thank you for having me. And thanks to everyone for joining and looking forward to the conversation today.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, great. I see you're head of engineering, so bear with me if I can't follow all your technical talkings, maybe. I will try my best though. And yeah, zkSync is on everyone's lips these days, I think. It's a big one. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hear more about it. And Anthony, why don't you start by introducing yourself a little bit? And how long have you been into crypto and when did you join zkSync?
Sure. Yeah, thank you for the introduction. As you mentioned, I'm head of engineering at zkSync. I joined the team around a year and a couple of months ago at this point, so February of last year. So been involved in what we're doing at Matter Labs for a little while now. Really focused on the last year as we've been bringing Era to mainnet, which I'm sure we'll talk about a bit more today. This was actually my first role in crypto professionally, but I've been following this space for a long time. I think it was back during sort of 2013 or so when I first read the Bitcoin white paper. Like lots of people, found it very inspiring. And really, for the next few years after that, I was kind of, at the time I was doing my sort of academic work. I was doing my PhD or postdoc at the time. But I stayed kind of as an enthusiast for the space, really passionate about the technology, and as a user kind of followed along as sort of the ebbs and flows of crypto kind of played out over the next few years. But for the sort of few years before joining Matter Labs, it was just like very clear to me that this is what I wanted to be working on. I was at SpaceX prior to joining Matter Labs and working on zkSync, and I would spend a lot of time working during the day, and it would be like go home and read white papers or play with DeFi or think about all of the different work that was happening in the space and start to really try and develop some intuition for how it might play out and how I might make a contribution. So for me, I thought about the space, thought about where I wanted to kind of try and like make some contribution, and for me, like scalability is the problem to solve. I would say that Ethereum is the like layer one that me and the team more generally are like very philosophically aligned with. But to really achieve the potential that we see for public blockchains, like we have to solve the scalability problem. And really, with zkSync, this is really the big mission for us.
Great. And I mean, zkSync, when did it start? Can we have like a brief history and a brief overview from you what it is about
Yeah, of
before we
course.
go in more in depth?
So the team started, I think, probably about 4 years ago at this stage. So definitely, multiple years before I was involved. And for the first sort of period of the team's existence, they were working on what we today call zkSync Lite. At the time, it was called V1 or just zkSync. And essentially, this was an application-specific zero-knowledge rollup. So we'll come on to talk about Era in a moment, I'm sure. But what zkSync Lite is no surprise probably to anybody on the call that for a long time, gas fees have been a problem on Ethereum. And even simple things like sending tokens from, wallet A to wallet B, or minting an NFT, or doing a sort of swap where you want to trade tokens, like all of these things are things that the transaction fee could be pretty high on if you're doing these things at L1. So the idea behind zkSync Lite is, and this system has been in production now for I think about 3 years, and very, very stable, very successful system, is that you can bridge from layer one into what we call a layer two. So this is a zero knowledge rollup, and you can perform these activities in the layer two. So you have an environment where you can do a swap, or you can move tokens and move value from a wallet to another wallet, all done at layer two in an environment that's much, much cheaper to use than it is to use, to do the same equivalent activity at layer one. And then we use something that I'm sure talk about a little bit, called a zero knowledge proof, to verify the correctness of everything that's happening on the layer two. And then we generate the proof, and we verify that proof on layer one. So the idea for zkSync Lite was, can you sort of find a way to provide users an environment that's much, much cheaper to use for these some of like core, almost like DeFi primitives associated to, doing things with tokens that you control. This is obviously not the general solution to the problem of scaling Ethereum, right? So with Ethereum, as probably everyone is aware, they have support for smart contracts. You have support for, you can build dApps that are of arbitrary complexity because you have this, programmable environment where you can deploy Solidity contracts or Vyper contracts to do different things. And this is really sort of, the major step forward for scaling the properties of Ethereum. So zkSync Era is a completely new system, and it's what we call a zk EVM. So this is still a layer 2, so you still like bridge your tokens from layer 1 into layer 2, but it's a general purpose execution environment. So development teams can deploy their Solidity contracts or deploy their Vyper contracts, and build a virtual machine, which is again much cheaper to use for the users than layer 1, because you don't have to, you're kind of in this execution environment, which has a lot of nice properties and is designed to be a lot cheaper, and it can perform a lot better with respect to scale. So it can process many more transactions per second than the layer 1. And then we, do this in zk. So what this really means is that you have this mathematical guarantee of the correctness of what we're doing at layer 2. So you inherit a lot of the properties of Ethereum that we think are, just like fundamentally critical for why this technology is important. Things like trustlessness and permissionlessness and censorship resistance and security. So Era is sort of live fully and open to users as of, I think, around 6 weeks or so now. So super exciting time for us. Huge milestone for us. And it's a lot more coming. But this was a big step forward for scalability.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and the team itself started out of, from Europe, I think, in Berlin. Is that correct?
Where
are you yourself, Anthony?
So I'm actually in the US at the moment, but most of our team are, in fact, at this point, the team is much bigger today than it was kind of back then when things were starting. I think we're of the order of 100 people today, and distributed kind of across the globe, still with a very core presence, particularly on the engineering side in Europe, and definitely, definitely like a very global entity at this point with people spread across the world.
Yeah, most tech companies are these days. And you are it's a company behind zkSync or not? Because it says on your web page it's a community ownership.
So this is really the idea for zkSync. And so the way that the sort of separation exists is that we are all at Matter Labs, and Matter Labs is the company that is like, for example, I am head of engineering at Matter Labs, and zkSync is an open protocol that we are building and want to, be building as one team of many. And, for us, this is the vision for zkSync. This is not, we don't think, Ethereum is not proprietary software in the sense that, Vitalik and some company own this thing, right? It's an open protocol, and this is critical for it to be what it is. This is also true for zkSync Era. So Matter Labs is one company, but we are the team, I guess, that is primarily and overwhelmingly have been working on it up to this point. But we've open sourced the entire system under, super permissive license, MIT Apache license. So the code is there, that we are going to be kind of building iteratively towards the world, and already are kind of, having people from the community making contributions. But the idea for us is that if we are to realize the vision that we have for zkSync, it definitely can't stop and end with Matter Labs being, the major contributor. We want we want the protocol to become a truly open protocol owned by the community. And this is, a hugely important part of the mission for us.
Yes. So the vision is that it's going to work from itself with the community.
Exactly.
In the driving seat.
Yep.
All of them.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, that's good. Good vision. I like it. And you were talking about zero knowledge rollups or proofs, I mean. Can we go through that a little bit? I'm trying to understand exactly what it means, but I would like to hear your explanation of it.
Yeah, of course. So I think the name of zero knowledge proofs or zero knowledge rollups is actually quite misleading, because mostly, and unsurprisingly, when people hear this term, they hear zero knowledge and think this is maybe to do with privacy, or, it's like not obvious really what we're talking about when we're talking about these systems. The way that I would sort of simplify it or describe it, at least, is actually what we use these zero knowledge proofs for is not the zero knowledge aspect of them, actually. It's this succinctness property that they have. So what it enables us to do with this technology is take advantage of a huge sort of asymmetry that's inherent in there. So the proofs themselves are actually, I think, more precisely understood as proofs of computational integrity. So the idea is that, I can run a very, very, very large computation, and I want to convince you or anybody that I did this correctly without you having to actually redo every step of that computation yourself to verify that what I'm saying I did was correct. Right? This is exactly how we want the system to work. We want there to be a huge amount of activity happening on the L2, so we can do lots of transactions, a lot of computational work. But how do we verify that all of that work happened in the way that we said that it did? And this proof really gives you that property. So what you can do is, you can have your execution environment, just like your virtual machine running at layer 2. Users are interacting with it. There are transactions, contracts being deployed, people, doing things on chain. And just as with Ethereum, we have blocks and we seal the blocks, right? Just, the block will be closed when it has sort of a certain amount of activity has happened. What we do, though, is we generate a proof of the correctness of all of the state transitions. So we can, do a bunch of math, run it on, big, expensive GPUs. But what you generate is a very small, very fast to verify proof that permissionlessly, like trustlessly, somebody can verify that this thing is done correctly. And actually, this verification operation happens on Ethereum, and it happens in a smart contract on layer 1. So what we're able to do is, prove to the community, not just, hey, trust us, everything that happened at layer 2 happened exactly as we said it did, but we're actually able to prove unambiguously that all of the work at the layer 2 was done correctly and, it's been implemented correctly and there was no malicious activity or no bug in the system. So this is the really important thing that zero knowledge proofs and these validity proofs give us. They let us do a lot of computational work. They let us then have a very small, succinct, fast to verify proof. That means that you can, trustlessly understand what happened at layer 2 without needing to sort of reprocess all of that activity at layer 2. And this is really why these zk rollups are so important when it comes to talking about scaling technologies, and why, broadly for the last few years, people have kind of considered these as a sort of the holy grail of scaling L1.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you mentioned that it's not really about the privacy, but isn't it also about the privacy? Because when you use this, you don't have to show your wallet what's happening in the wallet exactly, and yeah, you can be more anonymous if you use this.
It depends on
because you're together with a bunch of other transactions.
I would say with the way that some of these systems work today, privacy isn't really a core feature, and actually it works in a very similar way to Ethereum, where you sort of have the pseudo anonymity of a wallet, where the wallet looks, exactly like an Ethereum wallet. The address looks, exactly just as your sort of wallet address would at L1. But if I wanted to see what happened in a wallet, we have a block explorer. Just like with L1, you could go to a tool like Etherscan, and you could look at a wallet, see the tokens that are in that wallet. You could see the activity that wallet had done. You could see contract interactions. All of that works exactly today on layer 2 as on layer 1. And this is by design, because what we're trying to do when we build a zk EVM is actually take the EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine that's running at layer 1, and sort of essentially just scale it. Like, have something that for the developers who are used to using Ethereum, they have an environment that looks very familiar. The tools should work very, very similarly to they do at layer 1. It's just that you're able to move into an environment that's designed to be much, much, much cheaper for users and much, much, much more, throughput available for developers. So we don't, Ethereum can process something of the order of, let's say, 15 transactions per second. 15 transactions per second is just like not very many. Right? Like, this isn't when we talk about scale, this is the problem that we're looking at solving. So when you have an environment that can do hundreds or thousands of transactions per second, but it looks like the EVM, this is kind of the technology. Privacy can and will come at layer 2. We know it's critically important, actually. If you go all the way back to, we're talking about the start of zkSync, even in the very first blog post, privacy is a tenet that is very important to us. Just as in the same way, it's like people don't typically walk around telling everyone how much money they have in the bank, or telling everyone how much money, that they earn, exactly. Or, what my entire credit card history. privacy is important. We know that protocols will be built. And all of this is, these systems are complex, right? They take time to build, and all of these pieces will come, I think, in the fullness of time. And we will see, some of these problems are for the market to solve. Some of these problems are probably for protocols to solve. But at least today, the first problem we're focused on is definitely scalability rather than privacy. And the zkSync era system works, very, like the user experience today looks extremely similar to just using Ethereum.
But also here's maybe a question that no one can really answer. I don't know, but your opinion we can hear. And why is it that there are so many projects trying to solve the issue with Ethereum, that it's the scalability and the fees are so high and it's so slow? Why still use it at all? Why don't use another chain that's faster by itself?
Yeah, this is an awesome question, and actually probably like the first question, right? Like, why do any of this work? Why stick to what Ethereum is doing? And I think actually there's like one overwhelming answer, actually, in my opinion. And sorry, I dropped my phone. It comes back to this idea of the blockchain trilemma. So the blockchain trilemma is this sort of like a famous problem when it comes to designing a blockchain. And essentially, when you're designing these systems, you're trading off against sort of three axes. You have decentralization on one hand, you have scalability on the other hand, and you have security on the other. And you can you're in an environment when you're building these systems where this like a naive overview of it is sort of like pick two. And, Ethereum, we would argue, has picked correctly for layer one. And this is why we think Ethereum really is the public blockchain that makes sense for us to work with and continue to be a part of. It's optimized for decentralization. And if it wasn't, the question has to be asked, why use a public blockchain? Right? We know how to build centralized systems. Centralized systems are Web 2. This is exactly the story of, Google and AWS and all of the things that we've had in the internet and have seen massive centralization over the last, 10 years. It's also highly secure. The Ethereum manages, billions and billions of dollars of value today. And in a world where we solve the scalability problem, we believe that it will manage, orders of magnitude more, and it will secure this like future internet of value. So for the layer one, we would say Ethereum is picked correctly. And there are many other layer ones out there, and they've compromised either on security or on decentralization. And these are like compromises that we're not willing to accept. And many people, I would say, are not willing to accept, which is why Ethereum still has the level of momentum that it does, even with all of these like quote unquote Ethereum killers that we've seen over the last year, like pop up and then die. So, for us, it's like philosophically, we think that this system is optimized correctly at layer one, and we know how to actually now tackle the scalability problem. And we can start to have this sort of like specialization of environment where Ethereum can do consensus and can provide security and can provide this decentralization. And then at layer two, we can build these high performance execution machines. We can really push for, a world in which the environment is cheap to use and super, super fast. So yeah, for us, the philosophy of Ethereum is the correct one. They've optimized for what we think public blockchain should be optimized for. And then, continue to solve the hard problems of building the full system that we want to see for, not just thousands or tens of thousands of users, but millions, hundreds of millions and billions of users actually to benefit from public blockchains.
Yeah, but I mean, it's so congested now already. And then if mass adoption comes, will everyone be able to use Ethereum? I guess we will see. But your project, the zkSync and the era, are you aiming to like also run by yourself at any point, or are you always going to be using Ethereum?
Yeah, great question. And then just coming back to your point a moment ago about congestion, this is actually why layer twos exist. This is sort of the problem that they are looking to solve, right? Lots of layer twos exist. There's zk rollups, there's optimistic rollups, but our thesis is that actually activity moves from layer one to layer two. If you're playing a game, or if you're wanting to move value around, or do some DeFi activities on chain, you can do this all at layer two with all of the security guarantees of layer one. But coming back to your next question about our plans, no, like Ethereum is where it's our home, right? It's where zkSync era is designed to be. It is, our system is designed as a rollup that sits on top of this L2. The properties that we want, actually, we inherit properties from Ethereum that are extremely critically valuable and fundamentally valuable to the system that we have. We get to benefit from the security and the decentralization of Ethereum. So for us, no, there's no plans to move. There's no world in which we sort of go off on our own.
All right, cool. I mean, I don't really prepare questions. I like to go back and forth and talk to you and try to understand what the purpose is and what's the vision here and how it works. So that's why maybe sometimes it sounds a little bit weird, but I think it's very interesting because you are not the only project who's trying this. What is your what is different with this project from all the rest that has tried this or are trying this already?
Yeah, so I would say that in broad strokes, there are sort of two main approaches that we've seen to building, these kind of general purpose rollups. We have what we call optimistic rollups, and there are, several good examples of these. They were the first to exist because, the zk technology is non-trivial and took, time to build. Lots of research has been going on by the community. Mm-hmm. Doing this stuff in zk is not straightforward, to say the least. This is a very hard.
So are you the only one who do this this kind of roll-ups then?
So inside the zk side, there's several teams, and all of these are excellent teams. This is a very hard problem to be solving, but there's very different approaches that different teams are taking. So I won't speak too much about the details of the other projects, but to kind of just give you the high level, there's, I think, the first zk virtual machine at layer 2, general purpose virtual machine at layer 2 to be built, was built by the Starkware team. So they took a slightly different approach, or maybe even a substantially different approach, where they didn't attempt to sort of build the EVM in zk. So they didn't want to have teams be able to move their Solidity contracts from layer 1 or their Vyper contracts from layer 1. But instead they built a brand new language and a brand new virtual machine that's called Cairo. So essentially, if you want to use move from layer 1 to layer 2 using Starkware, you end up having to rewrite everything. So you rewrite in the custom language, and you kind of rebuild for a different environment. There are other teams alongside us doing sort of the approach of taking the EVM and building this zk EVM at layer 2. Polygon have a team doing something similar. There are several teams that are kind of working on this problem. But yeah, this is so much work has been done by the community for so long in terms of building out best practices for Solidity, and you see how much value is secured, as we were talking about earlier, by Ethereum. But having this execution environment, this EVM, work in zk is just broadly, at least I would argue, the way to really start to offer scale to the systems already running on layer 1 today, but also you take advantage of these this huge amount of work that's been done in terms of the tooling and best practices and all of the work that's been done to make Ethereum what Ethereum is today. We want to see how do you take advantage of that and continue to extend that ecosystem at layer 2. And this is why for us the zk EVM is the approach that we took.
Okay, so the zk is the big difference from the other ones so far anyway, and you're still continuing to working. And is there a big problem still, would you say, that's about to be solved, or you're trying to solve, or is this the solution to that?
Yeah, so for us, this is, when we're taking the journey of building what we think is the full scaling solution for Ethereum, you'd obviously don't want to take 5, 10, however many years, heads down, completely siloed, and just try and build the perfect thing and come to, deploy the perfect thing, because the problem exists today, to your point, right? Ethereum is expensive today. So the idea is, for us at least, build what we would call the MVP of the architecture that we want, make sure that it is designed correctly for all of the things that we want to do in the future, and that we can continue to evolve the system, evolve the protocol, add features, increase performance, but put together the first version, which is ready for usage today. And then with the community, we want to be, again, coming back to the point earlier, our mission is to, really accelerate the mass adoption of crypto. To do this, we want to be, working with partners who are deploying on the system. We want to be, building with our users, building in public, and starting to build a community around the network. And as we evolve the network, we want to do it with the community. So being on mainnet is very important. It relieves the pressure from layer one today. Development teams can and are already deploying on Era today. So already we have teams that don't have to, work with the limitations of layer one, and they can start building on layer two today. But for us, this isn't the full protocol that we expect to see, 2, 3, 4 years out from now. We have a big engineering team. We have a very, I would say, aggressive and ambitious roadmap. And there's going to be a huge amount of things that we continue to do to drive down cost, decentralize the system, increase the performance, and just, make it better. This is sort of, I hesitate to even call it like a V1. There's so much left to do, but it's ready for mainnet, and it is in a position where we want to kind of build in this open way with the community and, start to kind of get feedback from the real world as we improve Era.
Yeah, a great answer, actually. I mean, because you can never be really done, can you? I mean, it's evolving all the time. The time flies in crypto world. I mean, one year in crypto is like 10 years of crypto or something, or outside. So they say anyway.
Yeah.
And it feels like it. So you can't just say, oh, we're done. Roll up the sleeves and continue always. I've been when I checked out a little bit about this, it's like it is complicated to understand for people who are not really into tech too much. But there are like these hyperchains that you can build many layers on top of each other or something like that. Can you try and explain that for us?
Yeah, this is definitely a really interesting and active area of research for us, and I think other people too. But to give you sort of the high level picture, with one virtual machine, like with the Era system, we're not going to go from, a world in which Ethereum is processing, say, 15 transactions per second to a world in which like all of the world's activity, like financial activity, is on chain. And the question is like, how do we get there? How do we get to a world where, we're not going from, tens to hundreds to thousands, but we're going to millions of transactions on chain, billions of transactions on chain. And for this, with you can kind of think back to what happened in like Web 2 world, right? Like when Google were growing, they weren't just sort of getting one bigger computer that every 6 months they had to add more hardware to this giant machine. They scale horizontally. They add they're adding hardware, but they're adding it in this horizontal capacity. And actually, like the architecture that we're talking about when we're talking about hyperchains is an architecture where you're able to add hardware in this like horizontal fashion. And it's really the zk technology that give you lots of the nice properties for being able to even consider a sort of design like this. Coming back a moment ago when I talked a little bit about optimistic rollups, the way optimistic rollups work is that you can use the layer 2 just as you do with like a zk system. You, as a user, maybe you have 5 ETH, you bridge it from layer 1 into the layer 2. You can do a bunch of stuff on the layer 2. You can interact with contracts, you can trade, you can buy an NFT, whatever you happen to do, play a game. But if you want to withdraw back your tokens from the layer 2 to the layer 1, you need to make sure that the activity on the layer 2 is correct, right? You have to know that all of the financial activity was like processed as it said it was meant to. And the way optimistic rollups kind of handle this is that they make you wait, right? So they have this period where it's sort of typically about 7 days where you say, look, we need to resolve any potential discrepancies in the state of what happened on layer 2. So we'll have this window where we will sort of update state, with a sort of rolling window of 7 days where we can incentivize, teams in the community to run these sort of almost like watching the state of the chain, looking for evidence of fraud or evidence of some malicious behavior or a security issue, or a bug. So if I want to withdraw my tokens as a user from an optimistic rollup to layer 1, I have to wait 7 days until this sort of challenge window settles, and then the 7-day period has passed and the state is finalized at layer 1. So you introduce these big latencies, which is not great. Not a disaster for a user. I mean, it's a pretty crappy user experience to wait, a week to get your tokens back, but it's not a disaster.
That's a long,
It is a
long
long
time in
time.
crypto,
But when you
I would
think,
say.
but when you
Yeah.
think about like a liquidity provider, I would actually say it's a disaster, right? Like if you've got to move, if you're, a big DeFi protocol and you've got to move $100 million between the chains, like this is just too much. This is too much time to wait. So it's a poor user experience for users, and I would say it's an extremely poor user experience as a function of the like increasing value of the transaction. But the thing about the zk systems is it gives you, all you have to do to get to what we call finality, where the state is sort of final on the layer one. You just have to generate the proof and verify the proof. So you're not talking anymore about days, but you're talking about at the moment like of the order of an hour, but soon it will be of the order of minutes. So it starts to be like you can then sort of say, okay, well, now we're in a position where you can actually build systems where you can send value from like chain A to chain B in a time frame that is, sane from like a composability point of view. So this is really the idea about these like zk hyperchains, that you could have chain A and you could have chain B, both using the zk technology, and you're able to bridge value between them. You're able to pass messages between them, but you can do it in a way where the like latency of that message is extremely small, and it trends towards zero over time. So this is really the idea, right? And then you can start to say, it doesn't matter so much necessarily if I'm on chain A and you're on chain B and I want to send value to you, because I can do it. And the zk technology also gives you the ability to do this in a really trustless way. So you don't have to sort of trust that I send it to you. And the experience, when we've really built these systems out in a more mature way, like approaches something maybe more similar to email, where, I can send you an email without knowing like where your email server is running or any of this stuff. It's abstracted away, right? I would get to that point, and we want to get to that point where this is the way that, blockchain technologies can kind of, this is sort of conceptually the idea, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. I mean, you obviously have lots of developers also already building on your chain, right? So can you tell us a little bit more about that? How many projects are already running there, and how does it go over there?
This has been really exciting for us because, you're kind of, we're talking to partners. We've had the public testnet open for a year before we launched. It launched around February of last year, so we're well into public testnet now. So we saw a lot of activity, but you also don't really know what will happen until you kind of open the gates, right? So it's been really exciting. I would say that, I'm on the engineering side, so I typically be more inward looking than, say, our business team, who are much more outward looking, working with developers and partners. But we have a huge amount of activity, and we're like really excited to bring more. So there is a web page where we try to, kind of give an overview of what's live today. You can find it at ecosystem.zkSync.io. But there's, other good ways to sort of understand the activity on chain. So many of your audience may be familiar with a website called L2Beat. If not, I would definitely encourage people to check it out. It's an awesome resource for understanding the L2 environment. And it shows things like really interesting metrics about these L2s. So you can see things like what we would call TVL, but really this is like a measure of the amount of value that's been bridged from layer one into the layer two. You can see things like the transactions per second. And you can see also a lot of important characteristics about each of these systems, so that as a user, because to your point earlier, these systems are complex. We're engineers thinking about this stuff all day long, and it's still complex to us. So we understand this and we appreciate this, and we really want to try and make things more transparent for users. But tools like L2Beat, which are sort of an independent view over the system, are also really, really great from the big position of a user trying to understand what's going on. But we've seen a lot of value bridged into the system. In the first couple of weeks, we're sort of maybe 5-6 weeks in now, and it's about $250 million already. Very exciting to see the level of activity. Seeing a lot of activity on chain is why we're doing this, right? We really want to provide an environment that is useful to development teams, and we want to build an amazing developer experience for people who want to be building on Ethereum and on the layer twos. So lots of activity. I would encourage people to take a look at ecosystem.zkSync.io, and a huge amount more that's coming, because like I said, we're 5 weeks in of something that we anticipate taking years and years to really get to where we expect it to be, which is millions of users actually working on or benefiting from applications that are deployed on chain.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to hear a project that has worked so long and hard before, and then they launch. But you don't even have your own token yet or your coin. So when is that going to come out and how? Because that's what I know lots of people are waiting for and want to know how can I get my hands on some of those coins and when?
When is a question I don't have an answer for, but I would say the way that I would, to think about this is like we haven't needed one. And, for us, if and when we need one, this is something we will think about, but we also want to be very principled about this. We're not going to deploy a token for the sake of just deploying a token.
Yeah.
There are things to consider, as you look at decentralizing these systems, as you look at the proof of stake mechanisms that you may want eventually. These are all things that need to be thought through. But at least today, there's no token and there's no sort of when that I can share, unfortunately.
All right, so we don't know yet. And as you said, maybe you don't even need it, or will you need it, you think, later on? Because how do you make money now? How do you fund your team, all the workers, or are they all work pro bono?
No, so firstly, I would say we've taken investment from, some really exciting and like helpful investors, and some of the biggest names in, I would say, like blockchain investment are partners with us. With respect to how we run the operator, just as users pay transaction fees to run to make a transaction on Ethereum, there are transaction fees on layer 2 that help us operate the chain. With things like zkSync Lite, the idea is how do we design a system which basically breaks even, right? We're not trying to make money. We're actually at the moment trying to build this open protocol. And actually, if we, try to like put really high prices, this is kind of counter to what we're trying to do right now. This thing is only successful in a world where it really scales. And we're really trying to be user first and developer first. At least for us at the moment, the investment has been, really beneficial because it lets us not worry about all of the specifics of, like this today. But just as you pay a transaction fee on layer 1, you pay transaction fees on layer 2. It's just that the way the systems are designed, they can be much, much, much cheaper than layer 1. And partly that's because, when you're using layer 1, me and you or the audience together, if we try to make a transaction at the same time, we're basically competing with each other for block space, right? So, we force the gas price up when there's a big NFT mint. You see this very directly. Lots of people trying to jump in on the NFT mint, the gas price spikes. With the way that some of this layer 2 technology works is that you still have state on layer 1 because we want to inherit, like I mentioned, some of these nice properties around security and decentralization on layer 1. We put state from the layer 2 onto the layer 1. And we do this to be trustless, right? So for example, if zkSync vanished tomorrow when we've fully implemented the protocol, and this is the way that it works on zkSync Lite today, permissionlessly from layer 1, you still maintain control of your assets. You could force exit your assets from the layer 2 bridge purely from layer 1. To do this, you need to be able to recover enough of the layer 2 state from what's on chain on layer 1 to know kind of the state of, in a world where it went offline, like what state was it in when it went offline. So state has to be published to layer 1. But the nice thing is all of the users using the layer 2 sort of get to share that state and share that price update, share that price that you pay to layer 1 for the data availability. So instead of it being this like pure marketplace where we're directly competing with each other at layer 1, more activity on layer 2 means more people are sharing the price of using the layer 1. So the system will get cheaper over time. There are also improvements that Ethereum are making to be more friendly to rollups. There's this big change coming probably later this year called EIP 4844, also known as proto-dank sharding, where Ethereum is sort of adjusting its internals to offer a type of state storage mechanism for rollups. So it'll be something all rollups take advantage of immediately because the majority of the price of a transaction fee on layer 2 is the price of using layer 1. And layer 1 will get much, much, much cheaper for rollups, maybe 20 times cheaper or more. So over time, these systems get cheaper too.
So zk is like an umbrella that collects lots of raindrops, me being one raindrop, you being one raindrop, to then together go on the layer 1 and do the big transactions together. So we save the fees, right?
This is a good way to think about it. There is a little bit more nuance that probably isn't super useful to get into necessarily because, if your transaction touches a different, requires more of a state update, there are some subtleties to it, but this is a good way to think about it. The proving costs are also, as we make the technology better, the proving costs trend towards zero. And even today, the price of the proof is extremely cheap at the per transaction level. And, within probably by the end of this year, when we're talking about the price per transaction of the proof, we're talking fractions of a cent for the proof. So almost all of the cost of using these L2 systems is the cost of the data availability of layer one. And this is the piece that Ethereum is also, really motivated to make better for rollups, because Ethereum has this rollup centric roadmap as it really thinks about its future in, the direction that we would agree, execution can move to layer two.
But those people who now are on Ethereum and helping Ethereum to do all these transactions and getting these fees, because that must be very lucrative for them to get those high fees, and that's why they stay there and want to work there, right? And when zkSync comes and make that maybe not so high anymore, I mean, is it then because it's of the scalability that it's much more people coming that they will still earn as much, or
Yeah.
do you understand what I mean?
Definitely. I think these things are complementary. For us today, we believe public blockchains need to get to a point where, in the same way as somebody is using, Facebook or Amazon, they're not using it because they're enthusiastic about TCP/IP and HTTP and the internet protocols on which these applications are built on. They're using them because these applications are really good and helpful for their life, and they offer convenience, or they offer, whatever, entertainment. We think the application layer for blockchains needs to trend in that direction, where for most people, probably they don't even know or don't need to care, and probably shouldn't care that there's a blockchain involved. So, what does a world look like with, hundreds of millions of people on chain? It looks very different from today. And it probably is the case that there's a huge amount of rollup activity happening and a huge amount of value being paid by the rollups to Ethereum for all of the properties that, we've talked about on the call. So I think the vision for this rollup centric future for Ethereum, it's a vision, I think, of the Ethereum Foundation broadly. And, we've seen Vitalik present on this idea a lot and talk a lot about the zkVMs and talk a lot about this being kind of the direction that he believes is correct for scalability of layer one. So all of these things are complementary. And I think broadly, community is not homogeneous. People feel differently about different things, but broadly, I would say this is the direction that many people agree is the right one for Ethereum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, yeah, it's very interesting. And maybe we can also talk about where you actually work then, the Matter Labs. What else are you doing? This is your main project that you're working with on Matter Labs, or do you have others as well?
Overwhelmingly, all of our attention is on ERA. So we have two protocols. zkSync Lite was, what we used to call V1. And this is still something that, runs today as, everything works. It's not in any sense deprecated or planned to be at the moment. But ERA is where all of our work is. We're working both though on ERA now and what I would call ERA next. So many of the problems that we're thinking about are things that aren't necessarily going to be on mainnet, next week or 6 weeks from now, or even 2 months from now. But we have research going on about, what's the next generation of our proof system? Thinking about the decentralization of the sequencer, thinking about decentralization of the prover. So ERA is, like I mentioned earlier, we're in milestone one of this many milestone journey towards we get, to really hyperscale in place. So there's engineering teams working on all parts of the system, from the protocol, the compiler, the APIs, the SDKs, the block explorer. There's work going on across the ecosystem, and then there's also research. There's also things like security, where we're being adversarial with our own system, where we say, look, can we try to find exploits before potentially someone else did? And we have a very competent security team being adversarial with the system, and we also work with some of the biggest names in security and blockchain space to also partner with them and have independent eyes on things. But it's not like we have this huge suite of products. Everything for us is focused and like laser focused on Era and on sort of the vision for Era as well. So not just today, but where we're going and where we expect to be.
Okay. And something else that we need to touch on, I think, it's like when people are using zkSync Era now, they can, instead of paying the gas fee in Ethereum, they can pay it with whatever other coin they're using and that they want to move. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, so this is honestly like the other really exciting piece I think about layer 2, so I'm really glad you brought up. So for us, if we think about the user experience on layer 1 today, many of us in the space kind of live with, we're motivated to be here. We care about the technology, and you live with a bit more discomfort than maybe, you would feel that quote unquote, like normal, non-interested in blockchain people would live with. I would give a very easy example is managing a 24-word seed phrase to protect your wallet is like not a great experience. If you lose that, or, it's we see even today, very experienced people working in crypto, like making mistakes. And, personally,
all gone.
Right. Like if I send value, like I double check or triple check a wallet, or like, there's just like this user experience today is not seamless. It's not the same as say, using your banking app where you can easily move, $50 to somebody. It just isn't. And it isn't as clean as say doing things like account recovery. If you, I don't know, lose your Facebook password, like these things they carry more risk, and they also like are a more like uncomfortable and sort of even janky like user experience in some cases. At layer 2, we get to like rethink some of the decisions that were made in the past and learn from all of the experience of having run these systems in at layer 1 and other blockchains and so on. And we have this like a big part of what we're thinking about when it comes to layer 2 is not just how do you provide an environment that scales with respect to the infrastructure. Like, yeah, we can build a faster virtual machine, but how do you build the user experience that scales? Like, how do you make some of these problems kind of go away and abstract away some of this stuff and like make something that somebody is not interested in blockchains, would still be comfortable working with them, would still feel like, something you could imagine them using. There is this sort of like, I would argue maybe like poorly named concept of account abstraction. But what account abstraction really is for us, and maybe the simplest way to explain it is sort of like a set of tools or, some more flexibility that we're able to give to application developers to customize things when it comes to, building out things like smart wallets or building out things like the payment interface for their application. So to your point, you could say, hey, I'm building this application. I want my users to be able to pay in USDC or DAI or, these 5 tokens. Some other application could make different design decisions. Or you could say, look, if people hold this NFT in their wallet, I want to subsidize all their gas, and I will pay for all of their gas for their transactions, so their transactions are gasless. Actually, we did a demonstration of this at ETH Denver of this year where we were kind of doing this soft launch of Era, and we ran the food truck experience at ETH Denver using this technology. So people could claim these like Biddle bucks, these were like food truck tokens at ETH Denver, and then they could just pay at the food truck by like scanning a QR code with their wallet. And it was fully gasless. Like all of the like nice properties of account abstraction just made it super easy to pay for your food with some token that was like, just created for the event. So there was no need to have ETH in your wallet, no need to worry about like what's the specific gas token. And it just is about how do we onboard, huge numbers of people into the system? How do we abstract away some of the complexities of the system? And beyond this, it lets you do really cool things like social recovery. It just, it starts to build a much more Web 2 like experience.
Yeah. I mean, this is when it starts to smell like mass adoption, when you can actually use your tokens.
Yes.
And whichever tokens that you have in your wallet, or maybe you shouldn't even have it in a wallet. You can move them to somewhere else where it's easier to, like, as you said, it's 24 words or 12 words. Like, there are lots of projects, I think, working with different solutions there also already. I mean, it's still a new thing or movement, this crypto. It's not that old. It's still a teenager,
Yep,
so
100%.
it needs to develop and mature a lot. And people like you, I mean, I must compliment you because you are explaining things in a very easy way for me to understand, I think. And I keep saying this to tech people because crypto is full of tech people still. It's like many more tech people in crypto than others,
Yeah.
I think. And the tech people, they think in the tech areas and they understand it much better than like people like me or others that we want to be users. We want to like, of course, we want to earn money with crypto, but we will also want to be able to use it. And that's where you come in. You have to like make it simple enough for us to, as you said, also, it's about the user case. What can you use it for? I don't need to know if it's on zkSync or Ethereum or whatever chain or that it's even a blockchain, you know. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. I'm glad that it came from someone who is a tech person. Just
There's already like a
starting
bunch
to
of
see this.
cool people. Yeah, and if people want to explore this further, we've got, firstly, I would say there's really interesting projects being deployed with this technology. This feature set is kind of called account abstraction, in case you're curious. For developers, this is one of the things that is new at layer two. And like, for us, when we're thinking about how do we onboard developers onto Era, like this is where we've spent a bunch of time thinking about,
Yeah,
building out
exactly.
tutorials and trying to build out our docs in a way where it makes it easy to understand some of the new things that you can do as an engineer and, designing applications for layer two. So yeah, would encourage people to check it out. This is one of the most exciting things I think on the UX side.
But so how do you get new developers to see your side of it, that this is the best to build on? Because there's so many out there.
There are, and I think like part of how you tell the story is, definitely not for me in engineering to like talk about. It is outside my area of expertise. But when we're thinking about, the developer experience, we're developers and we try to make
Yeah.
decisions that we would want people to be making for us. Like we really want to be a very developer first team because, users are obviously the end users of the system, but for the user experience to be good, the developer tools have to be there, right? Like the protocol
Yeah.
has to be designed in a way, like we just talked about, where you can build things that aren't terrible. So in terms of like how we get people on board, we've spent a lot of time and, have an excellent DevRel team and DevX team, like building out tutorials. We have a huge community team in Discord, like really trying to help people on board. And the business development team are like, talking to everyone in the space and making sure that we give support to teams that want to migrate from layer one or migrate from, wherever they happen to be deployed today. But the other cool thing is about, when you have an environment that fees can be, 100 times lower or transaction throughput can be 100 times greater, you can actually build stuff there that you would never build at layer one, right? If you knew that your application required scale to be successful, you probably wouldn't even bother to deploy it on some chains today because it would become a victim of its own success. So, there's also, exciting things that you might build at layer two that will be layer two native. So this is also part of the team and like the developer community we're interested in, having deployed an Era.
Well, you have obviously done good work over there, marketing, because it is on everyone's lips. As I said, people are interested to know about this and probably also using it. So, yeah, good for you guys. I have to ask, do you have somewhere to be? Because the time flies and I could talk for hours and ask for hours and listen for hours, but
I have a few more
how's your...
minutes, so definitely, in case you have more questions, I have a little more time.
Okay. Well, I'm making up questions as I go because I like to. Obviously, there are also always certain questions that are very important, and security is also one of those because how to bring our parents on here on crypto and be able to use it. They are scared about the security. They are scared about these. My 12 seed phrase, I can lose it and then I lose everything. I mean, how are you approaching that to make it more secure and more reliable for normal people?
Yeah, so I would say that above anything else, security comes first for us. And honestly, this is the one thing that I think, like in every conversation, security has to be top of mind. So how we think about security is deep. So I'll try and give you the overview and like sort of try and cover everything because there's a lot.
Okay.
So I think it starts, firstly, we have, excellent, like world-class security team. This is, in-house, we can do a huge amount. And what this looks like internally is things like having security present in the conversation from like the start. When you're starting to think about a feature or you're starting to design a piece of the architecture, like security needs to be there. They need to be thinking through, this like adversarial mindset is really important from like right when this thing is on a whiteboard. As you start to build, you have, adversarial pull requests. You have security team like trying to actively break things when they're in sort of staging and development environments, so that we know that by the time a feature is sort of even in a sort of internal, relatively mature state, security is already something that we've given a lot of thought to. But we also, partner with some of the best people outside of Matter Labs to really, make this as secure as it can be. So we've done huge amounts of work, like auditing our contracts, auditing our, implementation with teams like OpenZeppelin, teams like Halborn, auditing the zk side of things. So external audits are another like really critical part. Not only do we partner with those big companies, but we also work with some of the best white hat security researchers. For example, last year, there was a researcher who found a really big potential exploit in, I think it was the Arbitrum bridge. So, we spent a lot of time with him and had him come and audit our bridge and, trying to bring people with such like niche, deep technical security focused expertise to like really think about where they can help de-risk our system is like for sure something we will do. Like, as you've seen, right? Like $250 million bridged into the system very quickly. It's like obviously a target for hackers. And we work in a space where, anonymity or pseudo anonymity is high. Like there's a lot of financial incentives for bad behavior and people can try and do it in an anonymous way. And we've seen, no shortage of, $100 million hacks in the blockchain space. So we think about it a lot. We run a lot of other things to kind of keep de-risking the system. We've done these like security contests where we've said, put up hundreds of thousands of dollars in bounty, and then we'll just pay it as a function of like all of the potential vulnerabilities that are found. And then it's just other things like it comes to open sourcing the system. The entire code base is open source, so that people, the thinking is the more eyes on the code, the like more likely you are to find an issue, and the more likely you are to be able to fix it. But we take it super seriously. It's like in every conversation,
That's
security
good.
has to come first when we're building the system.
So if you find good people, you try to onboard them then and ask them to help you.
Yeah, we want this to be a very collaborative community effort in the fullness of time. And we're obviously primary builders today, but we definitely don't want that to remain the case forever.
That's very good. So do you also have your own wallet? That was something I was thinking about.
So we have to bootstrap activity on the system. We definitely have built things like there's something we call the portal, and the portal is like integrated with our bridge UI. So if you want to use the bridge UI, you can bridge into the system. But also there are, to the point about account abstraction, there are some incredibly creative teams like building really interesting wallets. I think Argent is a really good example that are taking advantage of some of this developer toolkit that exists at L2 to build wallets that are going to go far beyond, I think, what we would expect to do in the portal. Our core competency is the protocol. We want to give good tools to developers. We want to give great tools to users as well. But we also want the market we don't want to do everything, right? If we attempt to, we will fail. And we want teams like Argent to be able to focus on building best-in-class wallets and building best-in-class X for whatever X happens to be. So we have things, but as the system matures, I also expect the market to, build even better things. And we'll kind of partner with teams as they develop. There's multiple different teams building wallets, I would say, on zkSync. And it gives users a lot of variety as well. And, competition is healthy.
So if there comes a team along, maybe they don't have funding, do you help them with that as well? Can you like pinpoint some good ideas that you want to bring forward and that you see fit your vision and the future?
Again, I will caveat that I'm definitely not the expert on the business and like ecosystem development side, but I do believe that if it's not active yet, there will be a grants program active very soon. So that, for things that we want to see exist in the ecosystem, we would like to help people get started. I'm not sure if this is live yet, but this is definitely something that I think people could look out for.
Yeah, I mean, you can, like you said, we want a wallet, we want this and this, and then maybe people can even, or teams can even compete on being the first and get your maybe your help or benefit. Obviously, it's an open source, right? So everyone can build whatever they want, I guess, but
Yep,
maybe
it's a
some,
fully permissionless system, so definitely don't
yeah.
need to ask us. And anyone on the call today wants to go try it out. There's a public testnet. You can go deploy contracts. We have tutorials. We have everything there to get you started.
Hmm. So how can I, as an end user, I'm not a developer, and how can I use this now already?
Yeah, so today I would say ecosystem.zkSync.io is probably the best place to go because we attempt to present a up-to-date list of all of the applications that are deploying on zkSync. In some cases they're live today, in some cases they're in development. But yeah, as a user, you can kind of go there, and week by week, we're obviously seeing more and more things going live, and I think this is the best place to stay kind of up to date with what is available, and you can start trying out some of the applications that are deployed on layer 2.
That's your website, you mean, right?
Yeah, so zkSync.io is probably the best place to go if you remember anything. Like this is the landing page for everything that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But there's an ecosystem page at ecosystem.zkSync.io, which is really
Okay.
showing
Okay.
all of the applications that are building on the platform today.
Okay. Very good. Interesting. Interesting. So, do you have like any referrals that people who can try and find good projects that wants to change from one from another blockchain to come over to you? Is that something?
Uh, do
Do
you
they
mean in
get
terms of
any
like
extra
financial incentives
benefits
or?
or? Sorry.
I'm not aware of anything like that. I would argue that probably like paying people to move over is not a strategy. Like our idea is, build the best
Maybe not pay
ecosystem
them,
for
but
developers, but
give them some extra benefits, or you will be in the line to get the token when it comes or something. Maybe that's
oh, I don't
paying.
know. I mean, I would argue that the ecosystem itself offers a lot of benefits. Like a lot of what I would say is like, for a
All
long
right, yeah,
time, people have been
fair
waiting
enough.
for the zk systems to exist, and I think we've designed one in a way that's I don't know. I think there's the system actually offers a lot for developers already, and we'll see. I mean, this again is definitely not my area of expertise. I'm sure there'll be stuff that the ecosystem teams have that I should be able to speak to, but I think next time I'm sure maybe one of them can
Yeah,
announce things.
maybe it's going to be congested then when people are trying to join your all at once. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah, the system is designed to scale in a way that's trickier for layer one. So definitely, this is the problem we're thinking a lot about.
Yeah, very good. So, do you have partnerships with Ethereum? You mentioned Vitalik before. Are you in talks with them? They are aware of what you're doing? Are they even funding you, or how does that work?
We work very closely with the Ethereum Foundation and many other people in the space.
Hmm.
For some of the things that we care about, we'll talk closely with the Ethereum Foundation on the development of EIPs or whatever it happens to be. Talking about account abstraction, Ethereum has been and kind of pushing forward this progress. Like they've been making progress on their own EIP in the direction of account abstraction, known as EIP 4337. This went live on the system in a version maybe like around December, plus or minus a week or two, and we kind of work with them as we're doing experimentation at layer 2 that also we think some of the ideas that we get to deploy and are successful can actually find their way back to layer 1 and improve the user experience at layer 1. So places like account abstraction actually is an area where we collaborate with the EF. So definitely, we are motivated to collaborate with people in the community. I think we have a really shared vision for the future and obviously a lot of shared goals along the way.
Great. All right. Maybe we can. Do you have some time more? It's over 18 now,
I
but
have like 5 more minutes if you have any more questions. I'm definitely
okay.
happy to answer any
No,
final ones.
I wanted to maybe make a short rundown again about uh, the rebranding from zkSync 2.0 to zkSync Era. What does it really mean? Because you wanted to talk about that, I think, as well, Era, more.
So yeah, historically, the protocols that we call today zkSync Lite is and zkSync Era were known as V1 and V2 respectively. I think it's just an argument to say that, as development progressed to the point that we're basically ready to launch what was called V2, it probably deserved a better name than V2. So, for us, in the fullness of time, Era is really the platform that we are working on and spending, almost all of our engineering and research and sort of technical focus on. zkSync Lite is still, highly reliable, highly useful production system for all of the things that it does to support, this like DeFi style activity. But in the fullness of time, like Era is the platform that we are motivated to build out. And, does it make sense, 5 years from now, to have this thing still called zkSync V2? Probably not. So at least for us, it was time for, some more thoughtful naming as it got closer and closer to mainnet. Really, this is, I think, the idea for Era.
Okay, so are you going to call it only Era later, or is it still zkSync Era? It's a long name.
That's a wonderful question. At least for now, it's zkSync Era.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right. Well, it has been a pleasure to have you here, Anthony. You're very easy to understand and nice to talk to you. And I hope you will come back. Maybe bring some of your a marketing team with you or something. That would be also interesting to talk more about next time, maybe.
Yes, that's great. Thank
It
you for
has
having
been
me,
great.
and thanks to everyone for listening in. I would definitely encourage you to go check out Era, and always interested in your feedback. We've got a very active Discord, and also if there's any excellent developers listening, you should drop me a note. My DMs are open, and we're hiring across engineering. But yeah, thank you for the time. We'd love to chat again, maybe when we've got some news to announce on Era in the coming months.
Great. Yes. I also want to know what you put on your pizza, obviously, Anthony. Do you use pineapples on your pizza?
You know what? I have a 9-year-old daughter, and her favorite pizza is pineapple and broccoli. So more often than not,
Broccoli.
I am finding myself. Yeah, I don't even know how this got started, but yeah, that's probably a more unusual combination. Yeah,
That's the first.
she's
Yeah, I've heard that.
yeah, creative cook, I guess. But yeah,
How
this
old
is
is
for my
she?
9-year-old daughter. 9.
9. Oh, perfect age for creativity and pizza making. I love it. All right. And is there something that you want to mention that we forgot?
I don't think so. Just would love to hear people trying out Era, and yeah, we'll see you on the Discord, I guess.
And don't you have a Telegram as well?
There is a Telegram as well. All of the links to all of our social networks and everything else can be found at zkSync.io. So definitely check that out for more information.
Check that out. Follow Anthony, follow me, follow Crypto Miners, follow the main. We don't have the main account of zkSync Era on here, but you can find it out there, I'm sure. So follow them as well. All right, and